F1 paddock rolls up to Spa-Francorchamps for the final race of the season, and the FIA have announced the official calendar for next season. The FIA have agreed to rotate the calendar to allow other venues to host F1 races on multiple occasions. Circuits such as Australia, China and Mexico are among many races that are going to be featuring next season, with circuits such as France, USA and Monaco that will be missing out on this season. However, they will be featuring in future seasons down the line. The FIA have decided that throughout the course of each of the following seasons, they want to allow each circuit to have an opportunity to host an F1 race, with many circuits having contracts to host F1 races every year, while others will now be all on rolling contracts and will be able to agree a deal to host a race in the seasons up ahead. On the screens right now is going to be a look at the F1 Journey Season 7 calendar for you guys to have a little delve into. I won't go into it into great detail now, we will go through it further in the pre-season video, but on your screens you can see what the calendar is going to be next season. But without further ado, let's get into the race news and see how the teams and drivers are faring heading into the final race of the season. Taking a look at the race news then as we head into the Belgian Grand Prix, McLaren top the timesheet in Belgium as they look to try and end a winless season with getting a win in the last race of the season. Audi meanwhile are missing a few tenths due to tyre warm-up issues. Audi seem to have good pace when they can get the tyres up to temperature, but they're seeming to struggle to do that quicker than the likes of McLaren and Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton is showing strong one-lap pace, but he still looks like he's going to struggle in the race, with the race pace of the Mercedes once again lacking. The Jaguar cars are also lacking a little bit, and it's in straight line speed. This might come to cost them in the race, especially on the run down the Kemmel Straight and also towards the bus stop chicane. And lastly, Porsche are aiming to try and get themselves into the points with their good straight line speed package here at Belgium and try and usurp Renault in the Constructors' Championship. Porsche currently lead Renault in the Constructors' Championship, however, they want to make sure that nothing happens and that they maintain the position ahead of Renault. But without further ado, it's time for the final race of the F1 Journey season. Hey, what's going on guys, it is Foxydude here and welcome back to the finale of Season 6 of the F1 Journey for you guys today here on the channel. We are here for the final round of the season at the Belgian Grand Prix. And as you would have seen from the last episode, the gap between myself and Sam in the Formula 1 World Championship is 24 points, which means that technically we are in an absolutely dominant position and can afford a very good or even a poor weekend really. In order for Sam to win the championship, he either A, has to win the race and get maximum 25 points and have me fail to finish, or he gets himself 26 points by getting the fastest lap of the race, and then I have to finish in P9 or above to secure the... In fact, no, I had to finish P10 because, again, I still have more wins. So, or I finish in P10 and I can claim the championship. So as long as I get a top 10 finish, then we've got the championship sealed. But of course, before we get that top 10 finish, we need to go ahead and actually get ourselves through the race itself. And as you can see, we're onto our flying lap here around Spa-Francorchamps, going towards Pouhon Corner now. Do we need to brake? Nope, not at all. We're in these cars, which are absolutely rapid, so there's absolutely no point in that. I have actually spoken throughout the entirety of this lap. I didn't realise that it was my fast lap of the weekend. You can see here how we're just flying through. A little bit too much apex there through that corner, which then cost us a little bit. But through Stabilo, absolutely no problems through there. And keeping the foot flat to the floor now. Fastest middle sector so far, but of course, everyone is still set to set their personal best laps yet. So we're not quite sure where this is going to let us end up. But as we now go through in towards Blanchimont and now onto the exit curb, heading up towards the bus stop chicane, the tricky braking zone now, braking at the 100-meter board, absolutely fine. And down into third gear through these set of corners. Probably could have dropped it into second, but it just allows me then on exit to get better rotation out of the car. And it's a 1:33.9, which is the fastest lap at that specific time, but of course everyone needs to set their laps. As you can see, we are now down in P9. Now we were 3/10 up going into this portion of the lap here, but I got that horribly wrong. First of all, I got onto the exit of the curb and the car rode, which then meant that I lacked a time to get across and you know, get the apex right. So I missed the other apex into the wall, and it's only P9. Alright then, it is the title decider. It's the F1 Journey Season 6, round number 17 for the Belgian Grand Prix. And this is it. 24 points separate myself and Sam, the two Jaguar drivers that have been going at it all season long. The Belgian Grand Prix normally gives you some spicy weather conditions, but today doesn't look like we're going to get that. It's going to be an entire season with no wet weather at all, but the 4.352 mile circuit is an absolute classic on the Formula 1 calendar with two DRS zones and overtaking opportunities everywhere you look here at Spa Spa-Francorchamps, with the elevation change also being a very interesting feature, which allows us to see the wonderful Eau Rouge and Raidillon. We've got the soft, medium, and the hard compound tyres, with the mediums again 0.7 of a second slower per lap than the soft tyres. We should be seeing them in the race. Don't expect to see anyone on the hard compound tyres unless they have to go into an alternate strategy in order to compromise their damaged Grand Prix weekend. Having a look at the grid then to see where everybody lines up for the final race of the season, it is Lewis Hamilton that has popped his Mercedes on pole position ahead of Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Hamilton with a stonking lap to get onto pole. Sam qualifies in P3 ahead of Charles Leclerc in P4. Sam, remember, has to win to take the Drivers' Championship unless things go my way in terms of results. Reese is P5 ahead of Sergio Perez in P6. Daniel Ricciardo is 7th on the grid with George Russell down in 8th place. We've qualified in 9th place with Nico Rosberg down in 10th for the second Mercedes driver. Verstappen is 11th on the grid. Pascal Wehrlein lines up 12th for Porsche. And then it's Nico Hülkenberg in 13th place for the second Porsche car. Valtteri Bottas is 14th for the first of the Renault drivers, with Ocon directly behind him in P15. Mason Wood rounds off Red Bull's qualifying session with 16th place ahead of Gasly in 17th and Vettel in 18th place. And then at the back of the grid then it is going to be Noah James and Lando Norris that round off the back row of the grid with 19th and 20th place respectively for the two drivers. But as you can see then, we're going to get straight into this Grand Prix, and our task is very simple. Just get a top 10 finish and we've done the championship is ours. That's all we've got to do. So we're going to get straight into it then and see what we can do. So here we are then on the grid for the start of the Belgian Grand Prix. Here we go then. So we've got 4, now 5 red lights here, and it is lights out here to start the Belgian Grand Prix. It's a good start from us though. Off the line already, getting past George Russell. Try to have a look then at the McLaren in towards the first corner, but he covers off the inside line quite nicely actually, and that allows him to stay in front as we now try and blast down the straight here. But the Audi of Perez gets a much better run than us from the exit of La Source, and now to make our way up towards Eau Rouge and Raidillon for the first time here as we try and fly our way on through down towards the Kemmel Straight now for the long drag here, and we have to use a little bit of ERS eventually at some point, unless I don't use it, which is a little bit clumsy if I don't, as George Russell now is trying to come at us here on the end of the Kemmel Straight here. Think that I've got this with some of that, but we break very late in towards Lecom, a bit too late actually there. Back end slides a little bit, the back end is gone, and we're now spinning around here, going onto the middle of the circuit, and a crash then at the back there, and that's a horrible mistake for us on the opening lap. Mason Wood gets involved in the crash. Safety car gets deployed for the actions there, but an awful start again for the second race in a row now. We've been left backwards into the first corner, and this time that was fully self-inflicted. That was just my own fault. So as we get underway then and the lights go out, Hamilton gets a very nice start here, covers off Sainz in towards someone. Sainz actually slightly ahead by the time we go down into La Source. Sergio Perez is who is fighting at this point here. Now, as we go into the straight here now, Sergio Perez in the Audi has got more straight line speed. Now, he was actually using ERS down the entirety of the Kemmel Straight. I was not, which was why I was so far behind in the first place. So, as we breeze it now down the Kemmel Straight, you can see everyone activating their ERS deployments here. Hamilton is trying to hold off against Sainz. Reese is trying to attack Sam. As we go in towards Lecom, we just break a little bit too late here. In fact, we actually break fine. The problem that we got is that there was a concertina effect there, and then the back end just stepped out on me as I went into a bit too deep into the corner, and then there's a big pile up of crashes there with Wood going into the back of me. I think the Aston Martin got through as well. So look at this here. So as I'm trying to just recover myself, it was just a bit scrappy because where I braked, like I said, in towards Lecom was absolutely fine, but because all the drivers in front were like in a concertina effect, they were braking earlier. So as I went through to then basically take the wide line into the first part of Lecom, the second part of Lecom, the line was a lot tighter for me, which of course then meant that while I spun and just couldn't get the grip because obviously the tyres had just lost temperature. It's a really clumsy mistake. It's all my fault, 100%. And now we're going to have to come into the pits and get onto a set of the medium compound tyres. Before we do that though, we do get a 5-second time penalty for the incident, which is absolutely fair enough in my eyes. I spun and I tried to limit the damage that was going to happen, but Mason Wood at the end, if it wasn't for my spin, which was self-inflicted, then, we wouldn't have had all these cars, all these 4 or 5 cars in the pit lane. So it would have only just been me in the pits. But lap 3 of the Grand Prix now, we're going to have to do exactly what we did at the Japanese Grand Prix. But, of course, here at Spa-Francorchamps, the AIs are not as broken as they are at Japan. And I've actually got a bit more pace around here than I do at Japan. So here we go then. The lights go green. And we can go again then for the Belgian Grand Prix. As it stands, Sam is currently 3rd in this Grand Prix. So he's got 15 points to his name. that means that we are going to win the championship by 9 points. So as things stand, we're okay. But of course, I won't settle for that. So let's go up Eau Rouge then. And as you can see now, onto Radion, now to the Camel straight here, onto the back of Noah James. This is now in the Ford car. Ford have been very poor all season long. As you can see now, we're getting into the slipstream of Noah as we go towards the outside line of Lecombe. This time around, though, we can break the latest that we can around Lecombe. Through we go, and being a little bit more cautious through there, because we still have to take that dodgy line, as we did before, but we're through. And we've managed to complete more than what we have done so far in this entire race in terms of racing speed, which is lovely. Next up the road is going to be the Porsche car of probably Nico Hulkenberg. But speaking of that Porsche car, he's actually got past one of his rivals, which is one of the Renaults now. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So we're going to use ERS. No. Do we need it? No. Bottas, see you later. Goodbye. Round the outside of Blanchimont we go, and he's been dispatched. Lovely stuff there. And I didn't even need to use any ERS. I think I just used some rich mixture, to be honest, and got that job done. So next up now, we can see here that Hulkenberg is attacking Ocon now. And I fancy a run at these two drivers. So let's see what we can do now. So they're side by side going in towards La Source. We might just go for it down towards La Source, but I decided to be patient on this one. I don't need to rush it. I'm looking at that mini-map. Sainz has actually taken the lead at the Belgian Grand Prix, which is brilliant news for me. So I'm absolutely fine right now. Like I said, as long as Sam is not winning, that's fine. As we now fly up Eau Rouge now here. As you can see now, we've got a fantastic run here. Now we've got ourselves past Esteban Ocon. Now we're going to go and try and attack Nico Hulkenberg here, using the ERS now to give us a little bit of extra straight line speed performance. And down the inside into Lecombe we go. Lovely braking maneuver there. Had to brake a little bit extra and down into 4th gear because I actually went in a little bit too deep, but we still made it onto the circuit, and we're absolutely fine. And we're up into 12th place now after lap 6. But this is where Sainz took the lead then of the Belgian Grand Prix. Hamilton was leading it, not for much longer though, because Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari is absolutely flying. Hamilton goes defensive towards the inside line for Lecombe. There's no DRS enabled at this point here, but as they go towards Lecombe, Sainz holds it out then versus Lewis Hamilton. This is a lovely little fight here now as they go down the hill here. Let's see if Sainz can go around the outside here of the corner with No Name as he goes around the outside here. In fact, this isn't the corner with No Name. The next corner is No Name corner, and that's exactly where Sainz gets the job done, at No Name corner. So that's really confusing. I hate that it's called the corner with no name because it technically has a name. Sam now, though, who is trying to capitalize on Lewis Hamilton's issues here, is now going to try and go around the outside of the bus stop, though, and he goes around the outside here. Lovely bit of an attacking move then from my teammate, who has to get on with it now as Sainz is pulling away here. Hamilton certainly had the pace in qualifying to put a stonking lap in, but that doesn't mean that he's got the pace in the race, and quite frankly, it looks like he's seriously struggling for some performance now as Hamilton here gets a little bit skirmish on the exit, but Sam now has got a very nice run here through towards Eau Rouge. There might be some DRS as well now on this lap here for Sam to have a go. Like, oh, he has a little look into Eau Rouge there, but not quite for Sam. He really needs to get past Lewis Hamilton here, and now as you can see, as we go and open up the DRS now for Sam, he goes towards the outside line here of the Kemmel Straight. Reese going to go to the inside line here. This is like Hakkinen and Schumacher back in 2000. Reese now goes down the inside, dives it a little bit late versus Sam, round the outside of Lecombe. Reese makes it a Ferrari 1-2, and Sam's overtake on Lewis Hamilton has been absolutely wasted here because now Reese makes it a Ferrari 1-2. Leclerc now is trying to get his way past Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton going backwards now in this Grand Prix, and Leclerc makes it through. His DRS has now been enabled. It is all going wrong for the Mercedes driver. Speaking of going wrong, Sam now is under pressure here from Charles Leclerc. He doesn't need this. He needs to be at the front of the field fighting the leaders of Sainz, but Leclerc looks to have the pace here on my teammate now. As we go on to the start-finish straight here, Sam's got DRS to fight Leclerc. Sainz leads this Grand Prix. Reese is in second place. Ferrari currently have that 1-2, and they've got a nice decent buffer. If Sam can stop fighting with Leclerc, try and recompose himself and go again, he'd be absolutely fine, but he's just struggling for pace now as they go up Eau Rouge here. Leclerc's in a beautiful spot now to go for an attack on Sam and make this move stick. Gonna have some DRS. Ricciardo's also in the mix now. Here we go then. Sam's got the DRS now on the Kemmel Straight. Leclerc's gonna have the run on Sam. He's got the slipstream this time around. He's gonna pull over to the outside line of the Lecombe chicane. Sam has the inside line, remember, but as they fly on through, it is gonna be Leclerc that's gonna hold out. Sam will try and come back at him though through the second part of the chicane. Now down the hill, Sam has that inside line which he so desperately needs to use, but Leclerc can use the outside line to his advantage, and through he goes into third place now. Sam drops to fourth now in this Belgian Grand Prix, and it's going to get worse. Something's going wrong here with Sam. He's going backwards now through the order. Here comes Ricciardo now to try and fight against Sam as they fly through towards Blanchimont for the fifth or sixth time. I don't even know what lap they're on at this stage of the race, but Sam is having a nightmare. Now the Audis are coming at him. I wonder if he's got a mechanical problem here because he's just going backwards from fighting Hamilton for second place. He's now fighting Ricciardo for 5th here in this Grand Prix. Make it 4th, actually, because one of the Ferraris has pitted for the first time in this Grand Prix. But that's it. Ricciardo's through. He's gone. And Sam is, quite frankly, having a horror show here in terms of his race pace at the moment. It's just completely gone in this stage here, as we're now on lap 8 of the Grand Prix here. Uses a little bit of DRS overtake now. Let's see if he can try and have a run on Ricciardo. Ricciardo might have DRS here on Charles Leclerc. He is going to have it, but now as we're going on board here with Daniel Ricciardo now, Sam's going to go towards the outside line of Leclerc. He is going to go for it now around the outside here, so he breaks nice and late around the outside. Let's see if we can try and make this one stick now. Takes the second part of the Leclerc chicane. Now as they go around the corners here, unfortunately Ricciardo stays in front. Russell now has a look in the Audi, but no doing there, and Sam drops down the order, so not looking good for Sam at this stage. But we're back on board with him again here, one lap later now, and he's coming back at Daniel Ricciardo. Seems to be a little bit of a gap that's pulled out now, as a lot of drivers are making their first pit stops in this race. But Sam now goes towards the outside line of the Leclerc chicane, and it's very close and nip and tuck between the two drivers now. Ricciardo holds on though against Sam, but Sam gets a fantastic exit. But unfortunately for Sam, again, more frustration as he is not able to get ahead. Skipping all the way to lap 15 of the Grand Prix now. That's a little bit late on the brakes. For me, I've just been doing my own race. We're out in the lead, and we've got a comfortable lead, actually. But we need to stop again, because the medium compound tyres that I fitted on the end of the first lap were never going to get to the end of the race. My plan was quite simple. Do exactly what we did at the Japanese Grand Prix. We're going to box now, go onto a set of the soft compound tyres, take them to the end of the Grand Prix, and have an absolute blast to the finish line. So that's exactly what we're going to do now. And we'll probably drop just outside of the points, but that's absolutely fine. We might actually stay in the points because we had some very nice race pace actually on the medium compound tyres. So that's the Mercedes of Rosberg there, and we are in P10 then, so we rejoin in the points now in this Belgian Grand Prix, and there's a huge gaggle of cars going up to the exit of, or onto the Kemmel Straight now, who are really close to each other. And speaking of close to each other, this is what caused everyone to be so close here. So Reese now tries to go down the inside of Mason Woods here into a very unorthodox place to do it, but he's going to do it now onto the entry of Stavolo. In fact, he does it just before Stavolo won. Now we've got Charles Leclerc here, who's going to try and have a look at Mason Woods and get past him, who's on an old set of soft compound tyres. And Sainz is in front, Reese then is next, then it's Charles Leclerc. So the Ferrari's advantage that they had over McLaren seems to have been wiped out quite quickly here, as Leclerc now through Blanchimont is going to have the straight line speed to go for it down towards the chicane here. Might be saving a little bit of energy actually, because Mason Wood has definitely not got the straight line speed in his Red Bull. And there he goes into the pits now for his stop in this Grand Prix. And now Sainz has got Reese behind him with DRS. Sainz got DRS on himself though, as he's now using the Ford in front to manage that. Sam though, crucially there, has actually lost out to George Russell. So more issues then for Sam in this Grand Prix. He's lost another place now, somewhere in the pit stops, or it could, well, in fact, it probably is from the pit stops from George Russell, as Vettel gets overtaken by Sergio Perez, the man that is going to the Mercedes next season, and Sergio Perez, who not sure where Sergio Perez is actually going next season. But as you can see here, Vettel now is going to pull over to the inside line of Leclerc. He's actually got a damaged front wing there to Sebastian Vettel. So funny how he's still going on the attack here, despite the damage. And you can see now, this is going to hurt Hamilton and Rosberg a lot here. The second Aston Martin car, though, of Lando Norris here, is now going to try and see if he can defend against Carlos Sainz. Unfortunately not here. This is very close, though, between Sainz, Reese and Leclerc now for the battle for the lead here. If Reese can get past Norris, it's literally straight away. He's got a golden chance here. He just sort of wiggles around a little bit, not really confident in trying to go for a move here, and that's lost him a crucial amount of time. Norris though goes into the pits now and stops, but for Leclerc though, he fancies a run on Reese here. Reese has got DRS now on Carlos Sainz, but Leclerc has got DRS on Reese and has got crucially more slipstream to utilize than the Ferrari in front, and he's on the medium compound tyres. Reese on the hard tyres now as they go through it towards Leclerc, but it's Reese that comes out on top. Now Ricciardo fancies a run here on his own teammate, but Leclerc closes the door quite heavily there on Daniel Ricciardo and says absolutely not. But Reese now seems to be struggling a little bit on these hard compound tyres versus these guys on the mediums, and that's to be expected, as Sainz as well is on this, the hard compound tyres. So if Reese can hold off these drivers on the medium compound tyres, it should then come to benefit him later on. Also give Carlos Sainz the buffer that he needs. If Reese collapses like Sam did earlier on in the Grand Prix, then this could be catastrophic. Speaking of Sam though, he's actually only right by there, so he's not too far back from everything now, as Leclerc and Reese might have to just go side by side up Eau Rouge to sort this encounter out. That's exactly what they're going to have to do. The gloves are really off in this Grand Prix. So close to contact there between the two drivers as they fly now down the Kemmel Straight, and Reese here with the DRS now. Leclerc doesn't have that, crucially, versus the rest of the field. And as you can see now, we're going to fly on through in towards Lecom with Daniel Ricciardo, who now steals third place from Charles Leclerc. Now it's his turn to have a go at Reese here. Let's see what Ricciardo can do now in the back of his McLaren as the DRS opens here on the Ferrari, and I'm presuming this is going to be quite a simple overtake down the inside into Lecom. In fact, it was around the outside, but he got that even before then, so comfortable move for Ricciardo. He is now up into second place then. Lap 16 of the Grand Prix now, and you can see here that Lewis Hamilton is in front. In fact, this is Rosberg actually, sorry. That's in front of us, and is now going to be behind us because we go down the inside into Lecom, and we move up into 9th place now in this Belgian Grand Prix. Lovely overtake there as our soft compound tyres now start to warm up here. I decided to show all the replay cams of what everyone else was up to first before we pick up on myself here. Now onto lap 18 of the Grand Prix. We're catching up to Lewis Hamilton in the second Mercedes car. Dropped Rosberg absolutely completely. He's about 3-4 seconds behind now. And all of a sudden, we've caught up to this huge squabble for second place. Look, in the start-finish straight, it's everyone. The two McLarens are here, Reese is involved in this, Sam's here, and the Audis are involved. So now, we could technically try and fight our way up to second place if we play our cards right here. Hamilton's been dispatched. We're up into 8th place now. Remember, drivers are on hard tyres and medium tyres. We're on the soft tyres. This is a great chance now to get something out of this Grand Prix. As Ricciardo now is in front here, but Leclerc has got the DRS here. Charles Leclerc now goes towards the inside line here of Daniel Ricciardo. And Leclerc now tries to go down the inside, trying to make a little bit of a statement here for the departing Charles Leclerc for McLaren. As he does so then, makes the overtake stick on Ricciardo. Reese now fancies a run here. Ricciardo goes very defensive. Reese though sticks his nose in there against Ricciardo. And now towards the corner with no name. They're going to try and go for this one now. Round the outside here for Reese. And it's a lovely overtake there. Reese though, can he capitalise in towards Pouon? And now all of a sudden Russell might just go down the inside. Ricciardo though holds it round the outside. Reese is through though into third place in this Grand Prix. We've got a yellow flag there for one of the Red Bulls that's just up ahead, just behind actually, going towards the chicane. So bad news for the Red Bull team today. But now for us, lap 19 of the Grand Prix, we're going to go for a dive down the inside on Sergio Perez. It was a little bit rash and a bit crazy, that move, but hey ho, we're still in the race. And now we're going to open up the DRS here, but unfortunately that Audi has got more straight line speed. And now that I'm watching or trying to fight here against Sergio Perez, I'm starting to understand a little bit why Sam has fallen behind so much in this Grand Prix. Our Jaguar car just doesn't really have the straight line speed to cope with the drivers in front of the Ferraris, McLarens and Audis. Unfortunately, as we now make our way through towards Eau Rouge, my point is going to be validated here now. We're going to have DRS. I'm going to use rich mixture and overtake, but straight away, look, I have to go instantly on the defensive here because Perez is all over the back of me now, going towards Lecom. Cheeky hiccup halfway through there, and unfortunately for Perez though, I'm a little bit bolder on the brakes and we'll manage to make it through. But Perez though gets a nice run as we go a little bit out of shape though, but around the outside here we can break that much later, carry the speed on the soft compound tyres, and we're through. 7th place is ours now. Next up the road is going to be my title contender Sam, who unfortunately at this stage of the Grand Prix doesn't look like he's going to be able to win the Formula 1 World Championship like he did when he was at McLaren and I was at Red Bull. Of course, that's when Sam won his F1 Journey title. Apart from that, it's been all me. And now onto the final lap then of this Belgian Grand Prix. Sainz leads the Grand Prix now. The Ferrari of Reese and the two McLarens are pulling away now, but as you can see here, Sam fancies to try and get himself past George Russell. Opens up the DRS now to go for it here. Has to just back out a little bit there initially. He goes towards the inside line. We'll take the outside line and do our own version of Hakkinen versus Schumacher now. Down in towards the Lecom chicane. We get the move done on my teammate Sam and also on George Russell. Up into 5th place now in this Belgian Grand Prix. Putting the car back into standard mixture now to drag the car home now. This is our final race, of course, for Jaguar. We will not be driving for them next season. I don't actually have a seat for next season as things stand at the moment. Still trying to negotiate a drive for the next season, but of course with Monster Energy coming into Jaguar as extra investment and sponsors from Sam's brand deal, they don't want me anymore. So unfortunately, this is my last drive for Jaguar, and I'm putting on an absolute show here as we go through in towards Davilo corner now for the final time here. As you can see, Sainz has built himself up a comfortable lead now here as we're going to just drop all the ERS now on this back straight. I don't actually have any fuel left here, which is a little bit awkward, but for Sam though, he might just have a little bit more here. He's gaining on us a little bit now, gaining on the slipstream. Got himself very much close. In towards Blanchimont he goes now. Sam might not win the World Championship. He won't win the World Championship, but he does want to try and beat me on track here. In towards the final chicane. Sainz wins the Belgian Grand Prix, but we're going to come towards the start-finish line now and come in P5, but win the F1 Journey title for season number 6. That is our 5th F1 Journey title. We've done it with Audi, Mercedes, McLaren, and now with Jaguar. A brilliant season and a great scrap between myself and Sam for, I think, the third or fourth season in a row now. We've had to go to the wire versus Sam, and it's been a pleasure to battle him throughout the entirety of this season. And confirmation there, we have won the title. Having a look at the race, the results though, Carlos Sainz wins the final race of the season for Ferrari, wrapping off a very great debut season for him at Ferrari. Charles Leclerc fought his way to second for McLaren, ahead of Reese in third and then Daniel Ricciardo in fourth. It was all about Ferrari and McLaren really. They seem to have the pace to win the race, and Sainz put that justice right in place. We finished in P5 with the fastest lap of the race as well, with my teammate Sam down in P6 there. We both managed to beat the Audi cars of Russell and Perez, and then it was the Mercedes duo of Hamilton and Nico Rosberg that rounded off the top 10. But crucially, the top 10 were only separated by 12.2 seconds. It was so close between us 5 teams here today. Anyone could have potentially done anything in this race. In the second half of the table, Pascal Wehrlein was ahead of Nico Hülkenberg. Then it's the 2 Renault cars of Ocon and Bottas. Mason Wood finishes in 15th place out of Lando Norris in P16. Then it's the 2 Ford cars of Gasly and Noah James. Vettel finishes in 19th place, and it was Max Verstappen that did DNF from this Grand Prix, capping off very poor second half of the season for Red Bull, I am afraid. Having a look then at the Drivers' Championship and just confirming that we have won the F1 Journey title. In the end, the gap between myself and Sam was 27 points, which is an absolute shame, obviously, for Sam. There have been some highs, there have been some lows for both of us, but at the end of the day, where we won the championship for me was during the time period where we got 4 race wins in a row, managing to beat the team, beat the field at Austria. We managed to just defend like mad in Italy and win that Grand Prix. We managed to outsmart everyone with strategy at Brazil. If we pitted at Brazil, it could have been a whole different situation. So yeah, those 4 races for me, when we got that little streak going, was the point where we won that championship. Otherwise, I couldn't see us beating Sam this season. He was so consistent despite not having many wins. Reese, though, finishes 3rd in the championship, and in the end actually finishes on 233 points, which is only 34 points behind me in the championship. So Reese was actually closer than I thought in the championship. Carlos Sainz finishes the season on 192 points. He had a couple of DNFs around the early stage of the season, which really cost him. George Russell, 5th for Audi on 160 points. He put in a solid shift for Audi this season with 2 race victories to his name. Daniel Ricciardo and Charles Leclerc finished their seasons 6th and 7th, with Ricciardo on 150 points and Leclerc on 124. Being perfectly honest, McLaren just never capitalised on the races they should have been competitive at. Azerbaijan, I can remember, Ricciardo DNF from that Grand Prix. The British Grand Prix, Leclerc was winning, and then his car blew up. McLaren had reliability problems, and it was at the races that they were fastest, which they need to rectify for next season. Nico Rosberg finishes his last season in Formula 1 in 8th place on 90 points, ahead of Sergio Perez, who managed to jump in front of Lewis Hamilton after the race itself. He finishes in P9 on 87 points, and Hamilton finishes the race season only 10th in the standings on 86 points. Definitely had the qualifying pace, just didn't have that race pace. Looking at the second half of the table now for the Drivers' Championship, Verstappen finished with 41 points, with Valtteri Bottas on 26 points. Pascal Wehrlein picked up 25 points for Porsche. Mason Wood only picked up 7 points this season for Red Bull, a very poor showing for him this season. Hülkenberg only got 4 points himself, and then Esteban Ocon was the last driver to pick up a point, with both Ford drivers and Aston Martin drivers not able to get onto the points this season. And then as we have a look at the Constructors' Championship then now, Jaguar, we managed to win the Constructors' Championship, 507 points to our name. Ferrari were our closest challengers with 426 points, but we were able to counter them, especially when they had their strong streak at the British and the French Grand Prix. We were able to come back at them and really solidify ourselves as champions. McLaren finished the season with 274 points, with Audi 247 back. Audi will be disappointed. They were in front of McLaren for quite a long time, but McLaren just came back at them in the second half of the season. Mercedes finished their season on 176 points. They'll be disappointed with that. They were close to McLaren and Audi when the drivers were all on around about 130 odd points in the constructors each, and Mercedes just slandered off, whereas McLaren and Audi kept pushing. Red Bull on 48 points. Porsche do manage to jump Renault in the end, and Ford and Aston Martin unfortunately have to deal with a pointless season. But with that being said and done, let's go and have a look at the post-race notebook for the last time here for Season 6 of the F1 Journey. As we have a look now at the post-race notebook, confirmation that Tom claims his 5th F1 Journey title after his P5 finish at the Belgian Grand Prix. However, it was Carlos Sainz that ended an impressive debut season with Ferrari with his 3rd race win of the season. He managed to start on the front row of the grid and overtook Lewis Hamilton nice and quickly before fending off the challenges of his teammates and the McLarens to take the win. Sam hopes that Tom next season can still get himself a strong seat and hopes to fight him once again. Of course, Tom will no longer be with Jaguar for next season and currently doesn't have a seat as we head into the winter break. However, Sam has full confidence that Tom will get himself a seat, hopes that it's a strong one and they can fight again. Tom believes that his title was won during the Italian and the Brazilian Grand Prix. Tom went on a streak of 4 race wins in a row, which he believes the Italian Grand Prix and the Brazilian Grand Prix showed just how much he had to work to get those victories with the car that was not the outright fastest. And finally, Reese was very delighted to be very close to the 2 Jaguar cars after the season ended. Reese finished the season only 30 points behind Tom in the championship, and it was an impressive showing for him in the Ferrari, and he hopes next season when he goes to McLaren, he can go ahead and show more of his true performance. But that is it for the F1 Journey Season 6. Thank you so much to every single one of you that have watched every single episode of the F1 Journey. It is always going to be my outright favourite series, and Season 7 will be coming next week. But for now, here's a little montage of everything that happened during Season 6 of the F1 Journey.
I tried to fight alone, 'cause sometimes we just don't know that we can do anything together if we just try, and as long as we have our backs whenever our foes combine, this time we will win, this time we'll have to join forces, this time we will win, this time we'll have to join forces. Castles and dragons, the battle begins tonight. Are you with me? This is our kingdom, and we won't run tonight. We are a team. Castles and dragons, the battle begins tonight. Are you with me? This is our kingdom, and we won't run tonight. We are a team. We can do anything together if we just try, and as long as we have our backs whenever our foes combine, this time we will win, this time we'll have to join forces, this time we will win, this time we'll have to join forces.